The driver grabbed my cash, took one more look at the Intergalactic Bed and Breakfast, and shook his head. "Lots of luck, kid," he said before slamming the door and driving away. I stared at Grandma's place and snorted. There had already been lots of luck for me since school let out for the summer last week. It had all been bad luck. I thought this was going to be the first summer that I actually got to stay home. But Mom had a last-minute business trip to Jacksonville to lead one of her management seminars for corporate honchos, and Dad had to help one of his partners in the law firm get a new office up and running in Atlanta. They could have dished out a little extra cash for our housekeeper to stay at our place full-time for the summer. I spent enough time with her anyway. Or, since I'm old enough now, they could have let me crash with friends. Heck, for a chance to be closer to home, I could have survived another stay with Mom's sister and her annoying little kids in Lakeland, like the summer after 4th grade, or even another 2-month sentence confined to the smelly cabins of the Happy Camper Sleepaway Adventure, summer after 5th grade. But instead, they shipped me out of Tampa, Florida, and all the way across the country to stay with Dad's mom. We had never been out here to visit before, but that wasn't too unusual. My parents don't really travel unless it's for work. I walked toward the front gate, kicking a little too hard at rocks in my path and looking up at my bizarre prison for the summer. How was I supposed to make the 7th grade all-star basketball team now? Coach set up summer practices 3 times a week and tournaments almost every weekend. I was finally going to have the chance to show him I could play point guard better than Tyler Sandusky. Everyone knows that Coach figures out the starting lineup during the summer schedule. The official tryouts in the winter only last 2 days, and they're a joke. Now Tyler would win our bet on which one of us will be in the starting 5, and I'd have to fork over a month's allowance. In fact, I'd be lucky to even make the team as a bench gargoyle, just sitting there and watching Tyler play. More likely, I'd be back on the intramural squad, playing with the other rejects who didn't make the real team, while Tyler traveled all over Hillsborough County with the All-Stars, competing against the other middle schools. Some of those bigger schools even have cheerleaders. Not that it would make much difference to Mom or Dad, since they're usually too busy to come to my games. They barely looked up from their suitcases as I pled my case for being able to stay home and play ball this summer. Maybe even start lifting some weights. I doubted that a fully equipped weight room was on the amenity list for an intergalactic bed and breakfast. Success is a byproduct of a well-trained mind. The body is much less important, my mom had said, neatly folding the 4th navy blue business suit to go in her luggage. Set goals and then envision incremental steps for success each day to achieve your objective. Nice advice, Mom. That was probably line 4, paragraph 3B of her corporate training seminar brochure, and somehow I don't think Coach had read that one. Dad's response was about as helpful. He just cleared his throat and said that some things were more important than sports. So I supposed I might as well forget about hoops and join the Sci-Fi Fantasy Club. There were no tryouts for that one, just a willingness to give up any hope of appearing normal and fitting in at school. Those guys... And I do mean guys. No cheerleader would be caught dead, alive, or zombie at one of their events. Dressed up in costumes and ran around with foam swords and plastic laser guns. In public. They even learned to speak languages that didn't exist, like Klingon or Elvish. I have enough trouble with Intro to Spanish. Sure, they looked like they were having fun, but was it worth making such geeks of themselves? As I studied Grandma's place, I realized it must cater to people like that after they've grown up, a place to escape the old 9-to-5 and relive those Sci-Fi Fantasy Club glory days. Should be a real interesting bunch to hang out with this summer. It was hard to tell it was summer at all here. It couldn't have been more than 65 degrees, the temperature on Christmas Day back home. Not a scrap of blue sky anywhere. The thick layer of clouds so low it seemed like it was being propped up by all of those trees. A sheriff's car cruised down the street, and the driver stared at me as he passed. A wide-brimmed hat cast a shadow over his round face, partially obscuring his frown and bushy mustache. A toothpick jutted out the side of his mouth. His gaze stayed fixed on me as he drove.